along with the grant if council were to choose. But that was part of that 50,000 grant.
And the motion of council was to provide the 50,000, and the Alberta Environment and Parks, they did the projects that they deemed, because it's under their care and attention.
So then we're not gonna have a whole bunch of residents coming back asking, we want this road fixed, and we want this road fixed, and we want this fixed.
In speaking with Alberta Environment and Parks, they, those road concerns are being addressed out of their own budget.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments on the financials? Blaine?
I just noticed in there, and like, just more curiosity in the hydro dig, we were using the hydro dig to dig post holes, like, was the ground froze or was I see Kim's not here to answer this.
The lines around it. No,
Yeah.
underground
Well, that's what I
lines,
was wondering.
part of it.
Okay, is
Yeah.
that the reason why that is?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine, I just wanted to know. And then the street sweeping, like, did we have to go over some again? Because we had transit paving started to do it till the 12th of May. And then Lawrence Meyer took over and did 3, and it ended up being about 40-some thousand. So curious, like, the protocol with that.
In regards to the street sweeping, I'm not, I need to speak with Public Works, and I can get back to you on that. Yep.
Good with that for next council? Yep. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any? I'll ask for the vote. Carried. 8, CAO report. Terlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you is on page 102 is the administrative report. Is there any questions?
Shane?
Since our public works guy isn't here, can you remind him that we were gonna upgrade the old Trans-Canada Highway in June, or July, and it's not happening, and it's gonna be harvest. So I hope he doesn't decide to do it when it's harvest time and everybody wants to start using it with grain trucks. That's why we said June. I was just wondering where we're at with that.
I will get a report on that for the 9th.
I forgot to get a motion on that before Shane had his question. You're moving it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for the CAO? Michelle?
I just had a question about that substation in Medicine Hat. What's happening with that?
So currently, so Cypress County has applied for intervenor status with that, and so we're working through that process.
I was just wondering how the Walsh attendance was. I was away at a wedding over the weekend, so how did that turn out?
I heard it was absolutely awesome. Leslie Ann, would you like to share?
Yeah, it was a very successful event. There, just alone for the people that signed the guest book was over 151. And there was a lot of people that obviously didn't sign. We had Battis there this year. That was different, and that was a big hit. The guys were great with the kids, putting the kids in the truck and stuff. So it was great. Halo landed and our fire services were there. It was a great, great day.
Well, that's good to hear, because, I hear people say, wow, nobody uses that and blah, 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 blah. So it's good to see that there was a good turnout and people enjoyed the day. So.
Okay, any more questions for the CAO?
Um, we had talked last week about that unsightly that was issued. You know if apology letter was sent, or if the right people got the unsightly notice, or what happened out there?
Yeah, I sent a letter of apology personally to the individual, and it was addressed.
Okay, any other questions? I'll ask for the vote. Vote. Carried. Okay, Reeve and Councilors report. Blaine already asked the question, but I was going to add to it about the Walsh being out there on the weekend. I spent the morning out there. It was an excellent turnout. Got to shake a lot of hands out there and talk to a lot of people. It was pretty impressive. Our staff has done a very good job at promoting that and putting that together out there and getting people involved. It was good to see Halo there again and spend some time. It was kind of funny because it was really windy when it first started out, and they said they came in hot at 300 kilometers an hour when they come out there. So it took them only 11 minutes to make it from Medicine Hat to Walsh. That's how windy it was. But no, it was a good turnout, and everything else I did is on my report. So Keith, we'll start with you.
Am I on? Yeah, good. Not too much to report. We got some gravel coming out to Jenner, so that's really good. Residents have been looking for some gravel for a while, so started graveling on Sunday morning, so that's all good. And other than that, I don't have anything to say.
Justin.
It's been a pretty quiet couple of weeks for me. Busy yesterday, obviously. The only thing I have that I'd like to add, if anyone's driving past 7 Persons at night, take a look at the community hall. They got their exterior lighting on. It looks fantastic. It dances all sorts of colors, so it's pretty neat to see.
Shane?
Fairly quiet. I did represent Cypress County up at Calgary Stampede for the our BMO Farm Family Award. There was 18 other counties there, 19 all total. It was a good project, good deal. And I went with Paul from Halo on a little fundraising mission to a huge corporation. I introduced him to the general manager to try to get some corporate sponsorship there. And yeah, that was about it.
Blaine?
Yeah, pretty quiet for me as well. Attended the last council meeting, I guess, and I had an Urban Ag Society meeting the other day. Received a couple calls about concerns about the Township Road 124 being a bit of a mess after the rain, so I think that's been addressed and taken care of. But yeah, other than that, and no, I guess and a few broken signs in Urban, and I think same as them, they've been put back up as far as I know. So it's good. Also had just more of an information thing for everybody. Is Travis Taze is having a forum at Halo, which maybe everyone knows about, this on the 27th, and he also would like to have one in the east around the 29th for in Dunmore and Irvin. So I'll let people know more about it.
Just do that one private.
Oh, okay.
Anything
And that's
else?
about it.
Michelle?
I had a policy meeting yesterday, attended MPC, and I too was at the Welcome Center on Saturday, and it was, other than the wind and the heat, it was a really awesome day. I was there last year when it first opened, and it was such a change to go in there this year and see how it's grown, and like it looks like home now. It looks like used, it looks comfortable, whereas last year it was just kind of this empty building that there was nothing there. This year it feels good. It was a really good day, other than the heat and the wind. And yeah, I think that was about it.
Besides the regular meetings attending, been quiet. Had a quick meeting with some of the park staff on those road complaints, and they're looking into it, and they're dealing with it. It's not as bad as I was led to believe to begin with. I think it's all good now.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I've got one thing here that I forgot. It was emailed to me yesterday. The Wind Towers have put together a bus tour they are offering for council to come out and what they're doing out there and how they're doing it. And they have 2 days that they're available for us to go out, and it's the 23rd or the 25th of August. So they were just asking which day would work for everybody, and then they will put a formal invite out for us and send it out. Jane, you have questions on it?
The 23rd works for me. I'm not be around on the west.
So it's no cost to us here, it's them bringing it out, so we're not paying for the bus or anything, it's just they want us to understand what's going on out there and see what's going on, so. That's all the information I have. Is anybody else good for the 23rd, or?
So if people are available, the 23rd works, but it's contingent on harvest
Yeah.
and other things. Does that sound fair?
We'll give them the 23rd, and then when the invite comes, everybody will know.
Any idea how long it's gonna be? You know, is it an all day, half a day?
I'd say,
Few hours?
I would, yeah, a couple hours.
Yeah.
I would say 2-3 hours. Yeah, and also too, like, would you prefer do it in the morning or the afternoon, or? Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
so like. Well, honestly
Yeah, no,
though,
well-
honestly, like, the best would be if we load up at 8 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
and then be done for sure by noon. Would that would be cool?
That way it doesn't ruin the whole day, afternoon,
Yeah,
the whole day.
in the morning.
Okay. So that's what we'll give them a heads up, 23rd in the morning. Okay, perfect. Thank you, guys. Sorry I forgot about that. It just came in yesterday, so. Yeah, well, hanging around with you old guys, eh? Not you, Dustin. You're the only one that keeps us young, so. Somebody want to move the reports? Lloyd? Any questions on them? Vote. Carried. 10.1, Terlin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Safety concerns, Eagle Butte Road, Prairie Rose School Division. On page 132 is the RFD. On page 134 is the request from Prairie Rose Schools. The recommended motion that council direct administration to install a solid no passing line along the Eagle Butte Road adjacent to the Rotary Centennial Park by the end of September. And so there's further background information there for your consideration.
Lloyd, you were nodding your head there. You're moving it, or do you have a question on it? Moving it? Okay. You have the floor. Do you have any comments or questions? Good idea. Shane?
Yeah, I would also like to see the installation of no passing signs. We mark it solid that we put up. Even with, you know, with the new thing underneath, no passing, and it'll catch people's eyes.
Just for awareness.
Yep, so just add that in the motion, yep.
You good with the friendly on that?
Yeah, friendly amendment.
Any other questions on it or comments? Okay, so I have a motion on the floor to put the solid line in and add signs saying no passing with the new underneath it. Any questions? Call for the vote. Carried. 10.2, Carolyn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Policy FP02, fire equipment schedule. On page 135, the recommended motion that council approve FP02, basic fire equipment schedule with amendments as presented. That's on page 135, and so the RFD is on 135, 136, and the policy is starting on 137. The changes are in red font, and the deleted text has a strikeout through it. It is a substantial rewrite, and do you have any questions?
Thank you, Carolyn. Dustin?
I'll move that. Looks much better, like that, way better than what we used to have, which wasn't very much.
We actually have something with substance to it. Any other questions on it or comments? Shane?
I'm just curious, because I don't see it, and I'm just going back to an incident I had at my place. When all of a sudden, one night, my fire alarms all went off. The CO2 detectors went off. and couldn't smell nothing, so I phoned 911. Lucky the chief on call that night for Box Springs happened to be my neighbor and he was right there. But we didn't have CO2 detectors. Box Springs fire trucks. They had to go back to Red Cliff, get somebody from the Red Cliff department, bring theirs over, and brought it out. I was wondering, do we have them at every station and do we test them? I mean, I was looking here for CO2 testers, you know, are they being tested too? Is what I just didn't see it, so I was curious.
Yeah, good morning. As of now, we do. So every station has a four-head MSA, altered gas, CO detector, H2S, LEL, and oxygen deficiencies. And they are good for 120 days. They get recalibrated. And if we have any kind of call that is required for potential gas, we can bump it on the way to the call or bump it at the station before. And Dunmore has a base station where we can recalibrate all the monitors at.
Okay.
Yeah, this is mostly for regulatory stuff. So a lot of stuff we were doing, it just wasn't documented anywhere. So basically, if we had an audit or an investigation, you know, this document where we provide the auditors what we do, where we do it, and describes how we do it. So there's different regulations and different codes, NFPAs, OH&S, that kind of thing.
Any other questions? Not seeing any? I'll ask for the vote. Carried.
Yep.
Thank you. 10.3, Carolyn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admin 33, establishment of reserves. The recommended motion is that council approve policy ADM 33, establishment of reserves as presented. The RFD is on 143 and 144, and with the at 145 is the policy. And so it is the amendment of the definition of an off-site levy. What is an off-site levy? As per section 648 of the MGA, off-site levies are charges that developers pay to help with the cost of off-site infrastructure needed for their projects. Off-site infrastructure can include things like new or expanded water and wastewater treatment facilities, utility pipes, recreation centers, roads, libraries, fire halls, and police stations. So that's what it can be used for, off-site services. So in the policy, it just needed some clarification. So the changes are struck out, and it is in, the changes are in red.
Dustin's gonna move them? No, I'm glad that you went through and verified that because it was confusing before. We always had it. Now we know what it is. Any other questions on it or comments? Not seeing any. Jane, I'd hate the day that you're going to tell me you're going to. You're not asking. Oh. Oh. You're about 2 days off of that, so I don't know why you bug them all. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to accept it as proposed by Dustin. Any more questions or comments? Not seeing any? Vote. Carried. 10.4, Carolyn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Township Road 122 speed limit reduction and school bus sign request. Before you on page 156 is the request in the RFD. The recommended motion that council direct administration to bring back the speed limit bylaw to include speed limit reduction to Township Road 122 from 80K to 60K and to install school bus signs at the cost of $300 to be funded from operations. Questions?
I think this is a great idea, especially with all the new traffic that is on that road. And the school bus signs, I'm all for it, so I'll move it.
Any other questions or comments? Shane?
Yeah, I got a call on this. Roads, I guess. But, with talking with Counselor Oster there was people on that road have witnessed vehicles passing this us. Talking, we thought, well, it's a short distance, we can drop the speed limit and that'll help because I don't want to see some kid get run over area and it just, it'll help.
Clarification, you seen them passing with lights flashing? Dustin?
So are we talking lowering the speed limit from Highway 3 to Highway 523?
No, just that first.
Just the first section, because it says County Road 122, that's a fairly long road that they're talking about there. So is it the section between, like, right up to the 63, or are we going to the 65?
I believe the intent,
Just where the blacktop is?
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
That was the intent, just
Okay,
that section.
you could sell me on that. You're not gonna sell me on the whole road.
So how
Yeah.
about, can we do a clarification? Yeah. On the motion, that just says on oiled surface.
Township Road
From highway.
122.
Highway 3
Three
to
to-
Range Road 63.
What
No,
was
it
that?
wasn't, no intent on the whole township one, just that short section. Where a
okay?
lot of workers going to the greenhouses are traveling.
On that topic, if we're gonna do that, do we want to take and lower it coming from the other side, Highway 3 to the 122 as well on that oiled surface? Well, yeah, 63, the 63 part where the blacktop is there past the greenhouse, do we want to lower that whole little block right there? Because there is, I know there is one house there anyways that's on the end where kids would get on the bus as well. But being as that is the place where all the traffic is, do we want to take and slow that down up to the stop sign as well?
I dig it. I think you got a good point there, Dustin. We're worried about the traffic going in for the workers there, and that's why we're doing it, so.
Further to that yet, maybe it should go up to where that other greenhouse is as well and slow that all down in there, because that's a major traffic area as well. Yeah, like past, up to Sunshine, do that whole area. So, anybody got a pointer? Works. Oh, I got it buried behind my junk. So, barely. So right there's the one that we were originally talking. That's the one I said, and then I was also saying this stretch right here. So all those oiled surfaces. This isn't oiled. That's that strip there, but.
So, Mr. Chairman, if you can amend the motion, it's still gonna has to come back through the bylaw. So the motion happens today, and then there'll be first reading of the bylaw. You can still amend it if you guys wish to like, not to change and amend that. So that would be good, to include it, and then you can remove it if you wish.
Michelle?
That sounds good to me. I will amend it.
Friendly amendment
Yeah,
to add on.
to add on those other two pieces to slow the traffic down all the way around the greenhouses.
How far down though? That corner?
That's all. That also is a good idea because that's where the events are held back here. Where they have like the monster trucks and the tractor pulls and stuff too, right back here. So if we put it right to the edge, then that, about 2 miles of the city.
Good with that, Michelle?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the first one we're talking about is that first one going across there, Highway 3 over.
Yeah, right to the intersection there, where they all turn. Where, pretty much all the purple. Yeah. Yeah, caution senior crossing.
I second that motion.
Okay, we had a amendment. Everybody knows what it is. Any more questions on it? Vote. Carried. 10.5, Terlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Trespassing sign request. Recommended motion that council uphold their decision and keep the no trespassing signs as is at the Dunmore Junction. There's background information here on page 158. Request has been received from a resident Dunmore requesting a modification to the no trespassing signs located on the lands known as Dunmore Junction. They are requesting that the signs be changed to no motorized vehicles, and which would allow foot traffic. As part of the conversation, all the land in question is county property. Part of the lands that they are walking on is owned by Wild Possibilities. Administration has attached pictures of the signs at the Wild Possibilities have installed. At the last council meeting, council carried to install a fence around the perimeter of the property due to liability concerns and complaints from area residents. So over the past couple of years, about approximately 3 kilometers of walking trails within the hamlet of Dunmore has been created and built, and approximately $700,000 has been spent on the trails for within the hamlet for the enjoyment of the residents. And so on page 160 is the request.
Thank you, Terlin. Jane?
I'll make motion to uphold the decision to keep the no trespassing signage as is, because pretty soon we may be doing work or something on there, so that off limit. That way we have other trails walking. That's gonna become a liability thing, we start work. But on that property.
I agree. We spent money on trails for people to walk on, which are safer. There aren't, not going to step any gopher holes or anything out there and break their legs. Any other questions or comments? Michelle?
Also, by reading the letter, does he not see the signs that Wilds have posted up there? Because it seems like he says that, well, we've always walked there, but it's clearly posted, so I'm all for this. You have enough trails. They should be walking on them, not around there.
Any other questions or comments? Motion on the floor is to uphold the previous motion. Vote. Carried. 10 point. Hold on. 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Page 10.6, Suffield Solid Waste Survey. Recommend motion that council direct administration to send out the Suffield Solid Waste letter and survey. Councillor Ritz has received phone calls from members of the community in regards to the lack of a transfer site. Hamlet of Suffield receives curbside pickup and recycling in the community. There's background information on page 162 and 63, and on 164 is the proposed letter that could be sent out, and the survey as well. And so Councillor Ritz would like to bring this forward and for your consideration and discussion.
You. We did spend a lot of time and effort on this, Keith. I know it's before you got here, but there was a lot. I think we were about a year trying to figure out what we were going to do with that out there, and that the outcome is what we came to, and it was the best one that we could come up with for the area. Michelle, do you remember all that? Or?
I remember Alf saying that the residents that he talked to, most of them were more in favor of the curbside pickup than they were the dump. So, and he worked diligently for that for a long time. And that was what we came up with. So I was kind of surprised to see this actually when I read it. So have you, like, what are you hearing out there, I guess, is what I'm going to ask you.
Okay, so when I,
Gotta figure one out. You asked the question so he can answer it.
when I did the door-to-door thing, when I ran for council, hello? So when I did the door-to-door thing, the topic did come up 4 or 5 times, right? So I knew it was kind of in the background. So then I didn't pay a lot of attention to it because it was all new to me. But then I got a couple phone calls from a couple of people, actually one person, who kind of wouldn't leave it alone. So I go, well, I don't want to regurgitate this and I don't want to hear about it forever. I was talking to Terrell then and said, okay, so how can we deal with this? Because I really didn't know if there was one person, a half a dozen people, or 3/4 of the town. I didn't know. And so this was a simple way of just send out the letter. If 5 people respond, we throw it all away because there's only 5 people. There's 220 people there. So in trying to get more information, I talked to somebody else I know in Suffield who happens to be a county employee, but happens to be a friend of mine, just to get a background, and that person's very happy with what they have. So I'm narrowing this down, and this is just, so the way I put this, if we do send this letter out, we'll have a pretty good, and I strongly encourage to my friend, I said, hey, look, if you're happy with this, please respond, because we're going to go with, we want to hear the positive things. I mean, there's a lot of positive things happen. I get the odd negative phone call about things, and then I sit back and I think about it for a little while, and I talk to Terrell Lynn, and then I call my buddy and I say, okay, so give me some background. How do you feel about this? And he goes, well, you know what? The same people seem to complain about things. So we're not sure, so like, I'm not sure what to do with this. I'm just going, I don't want to hear about it. I want to put it to rest. And this is the only way that non-intrusively that we could do that. Now, depends. If you guys want to go ahead with it, that's fine. If you don't, I'll just say, look, council's already laid down the law and this is what we've come up with and that's where we're going to leave it. Then that's the answer. But that's up to you guys. Yeah, it was just, I did get this complaint from one person a couple of times, and so I didn't know how to deal with it, and this is what I come up with, but so I just let you guys figure out what else to do with it. I know you spend a lot of time, and I know that there wasn't a lot of community effort or willingness to solve the issue back when it was an issue, and I'm not sure, I don't know if it would be this different today, but just it's up here for discussion.
Okay, we appreciate that, Keith. And we did do a lot of extensive research into it. It wasn't an overnight thing. Dustin, did you have something?
I guess I'll move it. I think if we want to do it the more practical way, though, we make it online survey or both, I guess, give them the option of doing either. So I guess it's not going to hurt to do it. If it's only 280 residents, there's not going to be a large cost to it.
Well, we can.
So
you-
I understand the lashback on it because I get it in 7 all the time too, from, this many handful of people. But if you do it, and for the small cost it is, then we know. If we're wrong, we're wrong, and if we're right, we're right.
Shane?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but before we went to these curbside pickups, there must have been a survey done. And it come back, I mean, you keep going back every 4 or 5 years and start now redoing surveys and changing stuff just because 1 or 2 people complain. But I mean, we at roads, we can look at everything. Are we opening ourselves up? I mean, we did an extensive survey then. When you read about how much it cost to reopen transfer site and nobody wanted to run it, are we bending to 1 or 2 complaints? I mean, boy, if that's the case, do a lot of surveys. It's gonna open up on all the roads, every culvert, every approach.
Michelle?
That's kind of what I was going to say. I mean, I appreciate the fact that you're trying and you brought this forward because you did have a complaint. But in my community, if I wanted a survey for every complaint I had, that's all staff would do is, be dealing with these 1 or 2 people in the community. And like Shane said, this was done a few years ago when they changed it to pickup. Everybody was happy with it, so I personally not in favor of sending another survey.
Okay, and that's, everybody's right here. That's why we have a motion on the floor to do a survey. And Keith is doing the right thing. He's bringing it forward to us to see what we're going to do. We've done extensive work on it already, and we just got to keep that in mind when we're voting. So is there any other questions or comments on this at this point? I'm not seeing any, so do this slowly here. This is the vote for a survey to go out. I'm going to ask for the vote on it. Against the survey going out. Okay. That helps you though, Keith. It's already been done. That's what you can tell the.
And I appreciate the time.
Okay, that is not carried. 10.7.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Emergency Services Boat Replacement on page 166. In the recommended motion that Council direct administration to sole source the purchase of a replacement rescue boat and trailer, including associated equipment for the Elkwater Fire Station from Auto Marine Specialties up to a maximum of $18,500, with the funds coming from the Fire and Equipment Fund. Here is background information towards the end of the page and the following page on 167. And there is a PowerPoint and with on the following page 169 with pictures and further explanation as well.
Okay. First, Charles making the motion.
And I just want to say that I'm making this motion because of that picture right there. If I was out there being stranded, I don't think I'd want a boat to come get me that's got a patch on it and hope that it comes out there and survives.
Shane, you have a question? Or a comment?
I do. And it'll be our fire chief. Search and rescue outfit in that has a boat too for rescuing off the river and used in other places. Like with this boat here at Elkwater, is it, by the time we get, once a 911 call comes in, I want your opinion. And by the time the rest people get there and that person probably drowned by then. So this rescue boat, just inform me on the more the use of it and how many times it's been used and that, because I know Alberta our search and rescue in Medicine Hat.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have to look at it two ways. We have to look at it if it's water rescue, like surface water rescue, or recovery. Cypress County, I recommend we're not in the business of recovery, but we're in the business of potentially doing water rescues for when big storms come up, for surface rescue, that people that their duotangs have pushed out that are not motorized, wind sails, paddle boards becoming very popular. So these are the kinds of services we're looking to provide. Search and rescue does have a boat, but they're about an hour and a half away, even from Medicine Hat. Elkwater did have 2 calls this year for service. The first call, they had their boat launched in less than 15 minutes, which was phenomenal. They spent a lot of time this year and last year practicing launching the boat, getting in the water, and getting it to the people that need it. I don't have the stats, but I know last year there was 3 or 4 calls for service for mostly stranded people versus people drowning just needing assistance. Yeah, we can pull the stats. We definitely have the stats, but there has been quite a few calls for just not Elkwater Lake, but also Reeser Lake in the park system as well.
No, thank you very much. You answered all my questions, changed my mind. Now I understand it more better. And yeah, no, I agree with it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think one of the things that it's highlighted in the request for decision, but emergency services did meet with some of the responding agencies, which include the RCMP, Alberta Environment and Parks, who ultimately are responsible as the rescue service provider for Elkwater Lake and Reeser Lake and Spruce Coulee and that sort of thing. We also met with the conservation officers, and the reality, as the emergency services coordinator illustrated, was the fact that many of these services or other agencies do have boats, but the challenges are, for example, the RCMP has a boat, but they don't have any trained operators. Southeastern Alberta Search and Rescue is a long distance away. City of Medicine Hat Fire and Emergency Services has a boat, but again, it's the same distance and travel time. And the conservation officers have a boat, but again, it's the same thing. They're well over an hour away if they're even in the area. And so really, ultimately, it's not our responsibility, but we're there as a supporting and supplemental role for emergency services, for shore rescues and those types of things. And I think we all came to the agreement that the rapid response time that the Elkwater Fire Station can provide is probably the most practical and efficient to the public that is looking for assistance. We're not the primary rescuer, but we're there as a supporting role. But ultimately, Elkwater is the most efficient.
I don't want to be on that boat with them. No, that's good. I'm glad Shane asked that question, because that's impressive that their quickest is 15 minutes to get out there. Keith, you had a question?
So when I look at the proposal here, we've got 2 different boats here. One's a little bit more money. Are we looking at, first of all, is the question going to be to buy a boat, or is the question to be which boat to buy?
So the motion is to buy one for 18.5. Up to 18. And sole source it. So that makes it the quickest.
Delivery will be much
Justin?
quicker.
I think we're really right in the height of busy season right now for where it's needed, so sole sourcing makes perfect sense just because we know we can get it right away.
Yeah, and I think to your question there, Councillor, option 1 and option 2, we did a lot of research and talked to other agencies, and they recommend a 40 horsepower motor, but we can't get a 40 horsepower motor with the 14-foot boat due to the stem of the motor being too long. And the reason we require a bigger motor is not for speed, it's for safety of responders. Most times when we respond, it's going to be in not calm conditions, it's going to be in windy conditions. And once a boat is potentially full of 2 or 3 people plus 1 or 2 firefighters, we need that power to operate in those swells. So it's not for speed, it's for the safety of the people that we rescue, as well as the first responders on it. And we actually looked at the Lake Newell recommendations and public fatality inquiry that happened in Lake Newell about 15 years ago. We actually went and visited with Brooks Fire and see what they recommended, as well as Masshan Fire, and this is the options that they recommended.
Good research on it. Okay, so I have the recommended motion on the floor. Is there any more questions on it, or? Vote. Carried. All right, thank you. Unfinished, 11.1, Tarlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Asset management software. It is on page 173. The recommended motion that council direct administration to enter into a software contract with Univeris for their Unity asset management software for the sum of $24,000 with an annual subscription of $19,000 plus 3% per year increase funded from operating and grant sources. The background is on the bottom of page 173. So we've talked about asset management before, the importance of asset management, where we are going with the needs of understanding what our current and future costs of capital replacement are. And so this software brings all of that together. And so there was a grant we applied for back a bit ago, and we received that grant, and the county's contribution was the 50. So 50 from the grant, 50 from the county, and so that allows us to go forth with this project. And it's a necessity, it's essential.
Yeah, nothing ever works in here.
Was short.
Oh. That's some high-tech equipment, eh? Lane's moving it. Any questions or comments on it? Oh, sorry, Michelle.
Yeah, I do have a question. So we have to pay $24,000. Do we get, like, what do we get for that 24 if we have to pay almost that much every year afterwards?
Yeah, so software is, you buy the initial cost of the software, setting it up, the seats, the actual software, and then there's a yearly subscription. All software is like that. A yearly subscription for updates, and mainly updates and helping, giving support. That's the word,
yeah.
support. So
That's what I figured. It's just that, like, your yearly cost is almost the same as the initial cost. I was just, usually when you pay for a subscription, it gets cheaper as it goes. I don't have an issue with it. We need it, fine, but I was just curious.
Any other questions or comments on it? Lane's made the motion to purchase the software. Oh, sorry, Keith.
It brings up the question, if you go with this and you're not happy or something's not working, what's the warranty? Because they're, for lack of a better word.
yeah, so we've signed a 3-year agreement with them. And so if it's not working at the end, we get our data. It's our data, we own it, and then go from there. So there was a request for proposals done about 1.5 years ago, and there was 4 submissions actually, and there was an extensive evaluation process that occurred, and Univeris, the Unity software, was evaluated at the top. They have many customers and clients in municipal government.
Lane?
Well, I'll just add to the motion that, I mean, obviously it's something we need, and the good thing about it is administration was proactive and was able to secure funding for this, so positive.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any, I'll ask for the vote. Carried. All right, it's 11 o'clock. Do you want to take a 5-minute break and then go on camera? All right, 5 minutes. Not 7 for a cigarette, 5 minutes.
As if they're gonna listen.
Yeah. That's true, eh? Okay, so the whistle, Blaine? I'll make the motion. Blaine's making that motion. Vote.
What is it, let the train keep blowing?
Yeah. ICF, Keith is making that. Vote. Carried. Nothing on the capital. All right. Lunchtime. 1 o'clock. Yeah. You could, you're leaving then, Dustin?
Thank you, Reeve Hamilton, and members of Cypress County. Scott Lair was planning on being here today, as Jeffrey just mentioned. The events of last night has kept him away, unfortunately. I'm Steve Hyde. I'm the second vice president on the Medicine District Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. So I am sitting in for him real quick. The Chamber is grateful for this opportunity, and we want to present to you and we look forward to furthering our conversations and fostering collaborative relationships with Council so that we can work together and continue strengthening our community and economy going forward. I want to turn it over to Executive Director Lisa Kwalchuk and Kian Layton, Industry Support and Government Relations, who will provide a snapshot of who we are and the type of work the Chamber is involved in on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Steve. So Steve is also the owner of Lacey Homes. So as many of you know, we certainly always try and seek to have various industry representation on our board so that we can hear from multiple voices when issues come forward. So as I think many of you are aware, I'm Lisa Kwalchuk, and I appreciate the opportunity to present to you in council. It's been a little while since we've been able to be in the horseshoe, and beside me is Kian Layton. So he's been our industry support and government relations coordinator since May of last year, and he has handled a lot of the rural work that we've done. So I wanted to include him in this presentation today.
Thank you. We're here today to talk about some of our work and how we strive to create connections with agricultural producers and how we can build on our work further with businesses and the council in Cypress County.
So as you know, we've been building relationships with our business community and within Cypress County for a number of years, delivering information relating to business, promoting legislation that supports our producers and our businesses, and connecting businesses to relevant professionals, and obviously influencing some of the decisions that directly impact our region.
Our mission as a chamber that's working in Cypress County is to be an essential source of information and solutions to strengthen our community, and as a catalyst for growth, uniting business, driving leadership, and fueling success through our connections, support, and influence.
One thing that's a common myth around the chamber is, you know, we're government funded or we're related to the city of Medicine Hat. We are an organization that's built by business for business. We're privately funded. We don't receive government funding outside of what many businesses did during the pandemic as well. We all accessed CEWS and CEBA and where we could, and wage support. But we're really built as a network of businesses, our staff and our volunteers through our board and our committees, with the common goal of creating an environment in our region that makes business successful. We have over 1,000 businesses that we represent, over 800 are paid members. We also have complimentary guest pass access for people who want to get a taste or a flavor for the chamber and what we do. It includes charities, government organizations like Cypress County, and various not-for-profits within Southeast Alberta. We also have over 80 of our members, so about 10%, are businesses located in Cypress County, so whether business or agricultural producers.
We have a bunch of committees that we set up by reaching out to local business representatives who are knowledgeable in a particular industry, and then we use that and get people together in order to acknowledge and deal with some of the problems that affect those industries. We have a policy council, we have several expert task forces, a community connections committee, large industrial manufacturers, urban developers, executive director network, and a downtown collective. We also did have a committee specifically for agricultural issues at one point, but it went dormant during COVID, and we are looking to start that one back up. We're sure you're familiar with how major corporations have designated teams that lobby government to promote passing grants, legislation, and bylaws that make it easier to do business specifically within their industry. And the Chamber fills that role for businesses in our region by creating task forces, flowing items through our policy council and advocacy, and following up with policy documents, letters to government, and meetings related to businesses.
In terms of how we identify issues, they're often brought forward to us from our members, but we also use surveys to collect data. We monitor government meeting agendas, press releases, and obviously we get input from our board and our various community partners. There's several roles we actually fill in addition to just advocacy and lobby efforts. Some we know only require facilitation, mediation, or the proper point of contact to connect with. Other times, it's an issue of education and awareness, as a company may not be aware of certain information. A prime example that we were just talking about prior to us coming in here was on assessment. So I had the opportunity to meet with Stephen Taves. You have a great representative within your county through him, and it may be just providing us with the education so we can pass that information on to our members or stakeholders that have questions about that. So there's a really important role that we play together, no different. Jeffrey Dowling sits on our Urban Development Industry Committee. So having those insights and connections, whether it's through council or through your administrative staff, is really important to continue that dialogue and to make sure we're informed and aware of what the county is working on. And if there's issues, we have that point of contact for clarification, education, facilitation, mediation, whatever role it is that we need to play. However, if we've identified an issue and it needs council direction or legislative change, that's when you'll see policy papers or positions coming forward from the Chamber. One that you may be familiar with was our policy position on HALO. And so HALO, Paul Carolyn came to us, brought it to our attention that they'd like to leverage the Chamber for additional advocacy support. And so we wrote a policy position paper with recommendations in consultation with them, took that forward with letters and meetings with government. And so it helps us unify our voice as a region when we're all making those same asks to government. We know, there has been significant work done by the county and by HALO on that, but know that you had us in the background, singing from the same songbook and pushing that. So when there's an issue that we need government change or legislative change or government funding dedicated, whether municipal, local, provincial, or federal, the Chamber can actually act as that additional conduit, either supporting some of the things that you're doing, or it may be things that come up from your stakeholders, your taxpayers, that we need to have a conversation with you about as well. So it works on all fronts, regardless of the level that we're taking that forward to. We also have the ability to leverage the strength and power of the Alberta Chambers and Canadian Chambers. So locally, we represent over 800 businesses, over 1,000 businesses through our database. But provincially, when we leverage and have a policy adopted by the Alberta Chambers, and you would be familiar with the same process through RMA and FCCM, correct? FCM, and being able to leverage. So we do the same thing in chambers. So we can take that up to the Alberta Chambers for them to adopt our policy position and carry it forward provincially. And we also do that federally with the Canadian Chamber. So we can take policy positions at a local level to a federal level and have the Canadian Chamber support lobby and advocacy efforts added to that. And so when we can combine our strengths and unify the issues that we're passionate about for a region, we can really use our collective networks to make things happen. And one of the things that I've often been told in the past is like, what can we do? We're only Medicine Hat. I'm like, we can actually do a lot, because we've had a number of different policy wins.
Just to briefly touch on some of the statistics before they're fully released through our annual report. This year alone, we've organized and hosted 6 events directly aimed at connecting businesses and government leaders to collaborate on addressing key issues. Some of the examples from our advocacy include coordinating meetings between provincial ministers and local social services, 4 new or updated policy letters, and 8 new government initiatives created that directly address issues we have raised.
So we're really here today in no small part because we believe our goals for the future align with yours. And we would like to create more opportunities for collaboration between our organizations and the Cypress County Council. We know that regional leadership success and promotion for our local businesses, growing a healthy business environment, and some of the advocacy work that we do certainly aligns with where your strategic plans have evolved to. We know it hasn't been easy for business. This is my part. When we look at some of the business statistics, and I looked at it for the city of Medicine Hat, and I wanted to see how it compared to Cypress County. And we use, if you haven't looked at the regional economic dashboard, I highly recommend it. It's great. It's a great statistical tool that's provided by the government of Alberta. But we can see that there's been a downward trend in population for our region. So Medicine Hat, Cypress County, and Red Cliff, it's declined from 79,341 in 2020 to 79,041 in 2021. The number of businesses has also declined by a staggering amount from a peak in 2013. In the last 10 years, our peak was 2013 of 3,015 to the lowest point in the last 10 years of 2,760, which was 2021. So it's declined from a couple years earlier even, which you can see the impact of the pandemic. It was at 2,890. So just that difference in the last 2 years alone. Fortunately, Cypress County has had a population change increasing from the peak in the last 10 years of 7,972 in 2021, so you've reached that peak. But you did have a similar decline in businesses from the peak in 2019 of 323 in the last 10 years, declining to 302 in 2021. So that's again from the regional dashboard. So we know that there's work to do. We know that we want to attract business to our region. We need to retain our businesses. We need to ensure that the supports are there. And so the Chamber's there as certainly a resource, partnering with other organizations for different initiatives and resources. And we want to raise awareness through various events and programs that we offer.
One of the most important ways we can get people to come to Cypress County and our region overall is through the events we put on. Some of them that you might be familiar with are the Home and Leisure Trade Show, our annual business awards, leadership luncheons, and State of the City. And we also use our voice and our platform to focus specifically on agricultural producers. In the past, we have been involved with some of the major agriculture events. Name escapes me at the moment, but there was one that was specifically built around getting people to go out to farms and see where their food is being produced, and that one was a massive success. Agriculture is one of the most important economic contributors of Alberta as a whole, and Cypress County is a key region with a bright future in the agricultural industry. The 2.3 million acres of pasture in Cypress County keeps Canadians fed, keeps revenue coming into the region, and creates jobs that bolster our economy. This is further built on by non-agricultural revenue, such as the energy production, the region as a key supply chain route, and the industrial sector in Cypress County.
In order to support this industry, the Chamber has prioritized agriculture as one of our 6 key priority areas. In addition to offering some of the benefits to our egg producers. So in addition to a weekly newsletter that we do, Kian's actually works on a curated page of business resources, not only for businesses, but we have a page on our website dedicated to agricultural supports. We also release a monthly agricultural newsletter that compiles information for agricultural producers that's sent out. So if you know of anybody that might benefit from those resources, you can certainly point them in our direction. Obviously, within our business resource section, if there's other resources we need to add to that you think would be of value to your stakeholders within the region, we can certainly add, modify, and update information to that agribusiness page as well. We've been pleased, as Kian said, to host a number of ag-specific events and task forces pre-pandemic. It just hasn't, and as I'm sure you're aware, our producers are not all that keen on using Zoom or virtual platforms to meet. They would much prefer to meet in person. So those have been something that's been on hold for the last couple of years.
Moving forward, we want to make sure that our policies, our events, and our priorities reflect all of the key economic contributors to our region. And we have a heavy emphasis on the room for improvement in the future, building our working relationships with agricultural stakeholders specifically.
So the nice thing about the Chamber presenting to you is we never come asking for money because we're not funded by government. So really our ask from you is, how can we work together moving forward to ensure our decisions reflect the priorities of Cypress County and your stakeholders, and how we can work more closely with Council to create a more effective working relationship. We want to work with Cypress County, the businesses, and in particular your Agricultural Services Board, because they'll have some key insights into the agricultural community, just to make sure the economic lens and rural voice is factored into the work we're doing for the region. So it's a pretty simple ask. So we're certainly excited to see what the future holds. We are a member-driven organization, community-minded, solution-focused, and collaborative. We recognize that our community is an ecosystem, and we need to work together to thrive. For our community to thrive, our businesses need to thrive to support the social fabric and sustainability of our community that supports local and puts our local businesses and our charitable organizations first. We're here to help the businesses that support our families and our community, and we want to work to align our strategic goals to help our community thrive and grow.
That's it for the presentation. We really do want to thank you for your time. We know that you hear a lot of presentations. We are excited to see the future of Cypress County going forward, and we hope that we can work with this council in the future. Thank you very much. We are open for any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you very much for coming in today. It was a good presentation. Anybody have any questions or comments? Shane?
I got two. We need the Chamber really, at any chance they get, your organization, really work on the government. We need two things in this county. We need Highway 3 twinned, and we need Highway 41 upgraded. There's more and more bikers coming from Calgary, not using them hills during the summer. We have a year-round resort, a ski hill there in the winter. And we have the shittiest road, highway, in the province. I was into business for 26 years, out of it for 7, and that highway's never been touched. So we have to get together as more of a bigger voice to force the government to do something about it. And that's, I'd just like to see the Chamber, any chance you get to, voice them concerns.
Through the chair, can I respond to Councillor Hawk?
Absolutely.
So you'll be pleased to know that we do have a couple of policies that relate to that. So twinning of Highway 3, and we are a member of the Highway 3 Twinning Association, so we keep up to date on their progress, circulate their surveys. I know they recently had one, communicate that, and that's always when we meet with the Minister of Transportation or Minister of Infrastructure. That's the agenda item is both the twinning. The other one that we have is the 24-hour commercial border crossing access. So while it doesn't speak to 41 specifically, going down to Wild Horse, it is part of that. So in terms of prioritization, and that being port of entry, Alberta is the only province in Canada that only has one 24-hour commercial border port of entry. To Coot Sweetgrass. And so there has been work for decades on the Wild Horse border crossing. And so the premise or the principle behind advocating for the border crossing is the highway improvements for trade traffic that goes through that. So from an economic lens, so you always have to think about how government prioritizes issues, right? So it's always safety, economic impact. So if that's designated as a second 24-hour commercial border crossing, you likely will have greater success with the improvements to the highway. The challenge is you're dealing with interjurisdictional issues. So the province and the feds keep bouncing that back and forth in terms of which comes first, the chicken or the egg. So happy to continue to collaborate there. Pre-pandemic, there was this nasty thing that happened in the last couple of years, but there used to actually be a cross-jurisdictional committee that Cypress County was a part of. We were a part of. It was representatives from Montana and Alberta. And so I don't know if there would be interest again coming out of this to be able to reignite the efforts of that. But there were efforts in both sides of the border to try to get highway improvements coming to that border crossing.
So coming to that border crossing, there is some work coming to it. It's supposed to be in the next year or so here. I've been into the meetings with it. They're one of 4 across Canada that they're going to spend money on and upgrade and bring. It's not going to be 24-hour. That was the one that was asked, but they are possibly looking at doing longer hours. And that's supposed to be going in the next year. The talks are in place and the federal government's been in contact with us on it. So that's a positive for down there.
And I'm happy to share our policies because one of the key discrepancies with that border crossing was like an electronic data, and I can't remember the term off the top of my head, but it was that piece that needed to come in to provide the capabilities to provide better commercial permitting, I believe. So
yeah, because the cell service and that out there is not good enough for the quick access they need to get a truck through the border. Okay, does anybody else have any questions or comments? Not seeing any. Well, thank you very much for coming in. We appreciate what you brought to us today. You guys have a good day.
thank you.
Thank you. Could have brought that with you. Are you saying we should get a coffee or what? Wake us up?
Oh, new system. Great.
Yeah, it doesn't work as good as we thought so far, but it's new.
It's nice and shiny. That's great. Good afternoon, Reeve Hamilton, members of council. I'm here to present to you the conceptual plan for Dunmore Junction. And to kind of go over it, what I'd like to do today is just review the purpose and intent of why we're doing it. Remind ourselves about the site context and the conditions on the site. Review the development concept and the surrounding servicing that's related to it. review our stakeholder engagement and what we came up with there, and then how to implement the plan. Well, as council is aware, the major intent of proceeding with this plan was to extend 3rd Avenue to Township Road 120. The second was to facilitate more commercial industrial development along the highway and along Township 120. The other factors that sort of came up as we were doing the review on this was to coordinate the alignment of the water network from 2nd Avenue up to Eagle Butte Reservoir, and also servicing the development. And then fourthly was to look at it in terms of to guide future development for the county, and that way you would have a guide in terms of what you can expect for development in this particular area. When we look at the site, just to kind of go over a number of the points that we brought up before, looking at topography and slope, the site generally goes from the south, Township 120, and slopes downwards towards the Trans-Canada. One of the major features that is in the site is a coulee that sort of transmits drainage down through the middle of the site, and there's a bit of an escarpment that sort of runs, or a ridge that runs for about the middle of the site that affects the elevation on the site. Access and egress on the site, or from the site or to the site, is generally would be from Township 120. There's no well, I guess there's a couple of access points that are really temporary use for agricultural purposes today, but future access would be off of 120 and the extension of 3rd Avenue. In terms of looking at the districting, it's agriculture today, and so the future uses and the future zoning, I'll kind of go through that when we get to the land use concept. And in terms of the site itself, in accordance with the county's area structure plans and MDP, it's a logical extension of where you want growth to go and where you want the servicing to extend to. Well, looking at the concept in general, what we see is a mix of land uses that have kind of that transition from the existing Eagle Butte subdivision to residential, and then we've got the transition from where the coulee is, providing that transition over to where the industrial commercial would be towards the east side and south side, or north side. It also provides for the ability to, or the necessity to put a stormwater management facility or storm pond down in the northwest corner. And that sort of covers off all of the drainage needs that you would have in that particular area or through this particular subdivision. The plan itself maintains generally the topography in terms of how it slopes, and actually the way the lots are laid out and the streets are patterned sort of fit in with the topography as it's laid out out on the site. And as I say, it really provides for that natural extension of your existing residential on the west side, and extending the commercial along the north side, and also the industrial that would be in behind the commercial. Looking at the transportation side of things, a number of points here. On the residential side, the extension would be, or the access would come from the existing residential area, and just be a logical extension of that. 3rd Avenue would be extended, and there would be a couple of access points along Township Road 120. One of the first access points would be in line, or the extension of 3rd Avenue where the UFA is. Council's already approved that particular redistricting, and so it would line up with that one. And then 2 additional access points have been provided along 120 to provide access for the commercial industrial. The road network inside provides for a 30-meter right-of-ways that that provide that necessary width for both utilities as well as truck traffic to be able to maneuver through the site. And one of the items that that's been raised, I know, by council or some councilors, has been the widening of the highway to allow for some improvements along Highway 1. And so the plan actually does provide for the lots that are on the north side. It provides for where the road widening would be based on what Alberta Transportation has provided us, and through the transportation impact assessment documents that the county has. In terms of the water network, as I said, one of the major things that we're trying to accomplish in Dunmore is that extension of the 300 millimeter line that would go from 2nd Avenue up to the reservoir. Well, we've in discussions with your other consultants who are currently designing that system, we worked with them to identify a potential route to get it from point A to point B. And what it does is it also provides that fire flows through the site and the connection to it. There was discussion about originally trying to have it further to the west. The difficulty with that is that you don't know when those residential lands are going to develop, and you don't know what the layout of those residential lands are going to be at this point in time. And so it sort of makes more sense to sort of align the water line where you already have, where we have a plan in place or proposed to follow in the road right of way, and you'd need that water supply anyway. The rest of the lines would be a 250 millimeter, which is based on what you already have in Dunmore. On the wastewater side, that would primarily be done on-site septic tanks and fields. But we've also identified the eventuality of providing a pipe system through this development. In terms of stormwater, we've identified the overland drainage and the direction of the flow, which is consistent with the plans that the county has already adopted through its area structure plans, and identified and sized as part of this exercise, did a preliminary sizing of that storm pond and where it needs to be and how large it needs to be as part of this exercise. In terms of the stakeholder engagement, it really was done at 2 levels. So obviously we met with council and administration to talk about what you'd like to see as part of this planning exercise. And what's interesting is that when we engaged some of the surrounding landowners, the ideas weren't all that much different, really. It's the extension of 3rd Avenue to provide access to the lands beyond. It's about being able to provide some future integration with the existing land uses, both commercial as well as the residential. And in terms of providing that connection to Township 120. In terms of implementing the plan, there's a number of steps, but obviously the first step is for council to approve the concept plan for implementation when you feel comfortable that you're happy with the plan. And then in terms of looking at it, what we've done is identify some logical phasing of how the plan could be phased in 3 different phases. And part of that would be also looking at the districting, and you can redistrict the entire thing, or depending on how you want to develop it or the interest in it, you can redistrict it in phases. The other thing that we've provided is because some of the feedback we heard from council was in terms of, what the development might look like and how to control the development. We've also provided some development permit guidelines that would run with this plan. And they're very similar to existing guidelines that you already have, either in some of your land use bylaw regulations or even in some of the other area structure plans that you have in place as well. So using those, but tailoring that to this particular conceptual plan. So in terms of the process where we're at, we've gone through the research and analysis, the council engagement, worked through the development concept, and we're here today presenting to council. And based on your input and feedback today, the next steps would be to incorporate any changes that council would like to see to the plan, and then to have council adopt it for implementation. Those conclude my remarks, Mr. Chairman, but and happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions? Well,
Not a question, just a comment. I really like this. The way, especially I think my favorite part of it is the 3 accesses to the new development. Because nothing irritates me more than only having the one access. Whoever thought of that was a genius.
Shane, did you have something?
Pick on me.
I just know you're. I think the number one thing that a lot of us were looking at was access or the number 1 highway there, how you incorporated that extra room there. We see it's going to be a need. So.
And so we've tried to ensure that it complies with AT standards, it identifies, and it's consistent with the development you've already approved on the other side of 120 in terms of the amount of width that you would need to be able to accommodate future needs.
Future shift of eastbound lane.
Yeah, it's whether, and I guess some of that is it's up to AT what they finally decide in terms of their functional planning. But so whether it's a shifting of the lane or whether it's whatever they happen to propose, right? So the important thing is that the land is available for them to do something with it.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? Sorry, Steve.
Hi, Peter. I was on, it's page 24 of our package there, which talks about implementing the plan. Can you tell us about how you determined the appropriate parcel size or how that came to be?
Sure. So in terms of the looking at how we defined some of the parcel sizes, so a lot of it's determined by the type of servicing that you have, first of all. So because you still have septic there and tanks, holding tanks, so that determines that you have to have a certain minimum size, right? So that's what we've done. The other thing that we incorporated was in phase 2, you can see that there are some larger lots in that area. And that is really to try and accommodate, because you have a slope in that particular area, you're going to have to play with that slope when you do some earth balancing to accommodate those particular lots and businesses in that area. And the lots in general, the lot sizes in general are consistent with accommodating commercial and industrial.
So for your access for the residential, did you already have contact with?
Yes, we did.
You did?
Yes.
Well, we asked you to put together and you followed everything, all the concerns that council had, so good job. Carolyn? Yeah.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman and Council, so the next steps would be to, you'd like to approve as presented or approve as amended for implementation. The sooner you do it, the sooner we can move. We're meeting with Alberta Transportation at the end of August to discuss the extension of 3rd Ave.
Then I got
Go ahead, Shane.
back up a bit. Yep. Not on? There we are. Our access points. Now, did we have a study like on that second one coming out of phase 2 there with the sight line of traffic coming down that hill? Was there an engineer involved to look at the sight line as you come out on the second one, not the bottom one, the middle one? Sight line, because that is quite the drop of elevation as you're coming down that hill. I was just curious on that.
Through the chair, yes, our engineer did look at the both the separation and the sight lines relative to that, and we reviewed it with the county staff to ensure that it met to their satisfaction.
Yeah, that was one of your biggest concerns when we talked about this, was sightlines.
Yep.
Keith? Go ahead, Keith.
Looking on 21, here you have for residential there. Do you have 3 access points into that residential area or just one?
It's conceptual through the chair. It's conceptual. What we've identified is there's one logical place where the road ends already, and so to bring that road across is the logical thing to do when you look at it. The other 2 points, we looked at the length of the cul-de-sacs and kind of say, you should have a second access out of there and not have such a long cul-de-sac. And so that's the purpose for the other 2 road pieces coming into the other property. And if we haven't shown it, but if you overlay, the lot sizes and show it, we didn't want to show it on private property,
Yeah,
but when you can just sort of mirror that subdivision over, and there's sufficient room to have the lots on the other side, and then have, the lots sort of work together, right? So it becomes a logical extension of it. So that's how we sort of came up with the design.
Yeah, Keith, that kind of goes back to why I asked if the other developer was involved, so those accesses would work out. Should be 3 of them in there. Any other questions or comments? Would somebody like to make? What's that? It's up to the developer. You got to put that in.
And there's sufficient green, the green is,
Yeah.
yeah, the green space, like there's sufficient there for a walking trail.
Walking.
Hey. You're making the motion to accept as presented? Any questions on? Oh. You need to put us, yeah, please.
That council approved the Dunmore Junction concept plan for implementation as presented.
That's what you're saying, right, Keith? Perfect. Any other questions or comments? I'll ask for the vote. It's carried. All right. Thank you very much, Peter. And that will be adjournment for the day. Thank you, everyone.